Hi everyone, it's Don from Crux Terminatus, and this video is very different. There's not going to be any painting in it at all. I just really want to have a conversation about things you should think about and things you should know if you're going to build a huge kit, in this case a Warlord Titan. And it might go off on tangents because it's not really scripted. I just want to share some of my thoughts. The first thing is, that's the Titan, so I'll put some photographs or something up, maybe do a different video for that, but basically I just wanted to talk about the process of buying, building, painting a Titan, and just basically go through the journey. So the first thing is, it's a bit odd for me because owning a Titan, having a Titan is a bit of a humble brag, and this video is absolutely not about a humble brag. In fact, you'll find out in a minute why it isn't, but realistically, I don't know anyone who has more than one Titan. I'm sure these people exist and more power to them, but for me, owning a Titan was the sort of stuff you dreamt about 10, 15 years ago and thought, well, that's never going to happen. But circumstances, stars aligned, or whatever you want to call it, to allow me to get my hands on one. So let's deal with that one first. How come you could afford a Titan? I couldn't. And that's the truth. I don't have that kind of money. Very few people do. So this Titan here, and certainly from this range, I think you'd be hard pushed to tell that it's China Forge or a recast or whatever. And I'm not making a judgment. You know, if you can afford a genuine forge rolled one, great, you should totally do that, and I hope you enjoy it. I couldn't even afford the recast one. So let me explain quickly how this came to my possession. I had a friend who bought the recast one from China, facilitated by another friend, and it sat in his house for, I think I worked it out to be, he had it in his possession for at least 4, I think 5 years, and he was, I think it's fair to say, he was a bit scared of actually building it and painting it. And anyway, he moved to another country, and as part of his moving journey, he decided he couldn't take it with him. So he said to me, would you like to buy it? And he gave it to me for a price which was, you know, it's one of those things you just can't say no to. However, I also kept it in a box in my loft, and every sort of 6 months or so I would think, right, now's the time, I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to build this Titan. And then you take it out, and I had it in a big box. I mean, obviously it didn't come in, you know, the standard red boxes, came in carrier bags really, but I had it in a little sort of, I had it in a massive, really useful box type thing, and it sat there, and I was so intimidated by it. I was so scared of actually trying it, but my personal circumstances changed, and I was not able to purchase any more minis for a good long while, and I did the thing that everyone says they're going to do and no one ever does, which is to get rid of their hoard of future glory or pile of shame. And it took about 18 months, but I got there. I finished all of the models that I had in my stash, and that's something I never thought I would say ever. But you know, that's just how life goes sometimes, I guess. So this is a recast Titan. Am I embarrassed about it? No, not really. Am I, you know, do I think I've won a watch by beating the nasty overlords at Games Workshop. No. As I say, if you've got the money and you want to buy an original one, great, you should totally do that. I'll explain why you should totally do that as we're talking about the building. But the one thing I want to do is explain some of the tools that you might need. No, you're going to need. So the first things first. One of the first things is the weight of this thing is incredible. Like it weighs a ton. So you're going to have supports. You're going to have a sort of skeletal structure for it. And how I did that was with brass rods. Okay, so I ordered 2 brass rods, and what I'll do now, I think in the video, is I'll cut to the ones that I ordered off of Amazon or eBay. It was one of the two. And I got 2 lengths of brass rods, 6mm, and that's what I've got left of the. That's how much is left. I used every scrap of it. And that was for the main structure points. So the ankles, the knees, the hips, and the shoulders. So they're all used with the brass rod. For the other parts, the parts that weren't taking as much weight, people had said, oh, you can get thinner brass rods, and they're right, you can. But I was on a real budget, so I used a packet of round wire nails. I didn't intend to use them. I was actually using these to gauge the depth. But I put a couple of pieces together and I thought, well, actually that's actually fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'll take a close-up photograph so you can see this, but I got this out of B&Q about 15 years ago, sat about, but I just used them. You're going to need a hacksaw. Now you're going to need a hacksaw because the brass rods are tough to cut, and the first couple of cuts that I made were with my standard hacksaw, and it was taking ages to cut one single cut through the rod. And I thought, how old is that blade? And it turns out that blade was about 15 years old, and I'd used it for every DIY thing I can think of. So my first purchase properly for the project really was the brass rods and then this blade. Okay, so it's obviously for cutting metal, and the difference was night and day. Done. So don't suffer with rusty old saw blades if you can. Okay, so that's some of it. The biggest problem is, especially with the Forge World one, the genuine one, is they're great at quality. So they use much bigger gates for the resin pour. So you're getting like tank trap style like chunks of resin. Our friends in China obviously don't want to do that, so the gates on those resin pieces were tiny, 10% of the original ones. But they do what they're meant to do. So cleaning up the model before you even start took a huge amount of time. Then obviously once I'd cut all the gates off, and that's something, definitely do that outside, 100% do that outside, because there's a lot of dust, and resin dust is very naughty. Then I had to sand a lot of the pieces, especially with the recasts. The lip of where it joins, like there's an armour panel here actually that in the end I decided not to stick on. The seam around the edge can be quite rough, so there was an awful lot of sanding and filling in certain areas. Not so much filling, I tended to shave away to a baseline rather than build up to a baseline. This is the skull cap. sits in there if you want it to be there, but I actually preferred the look without it, so I didn't bother. So that's that. Then obviously you need to wash your resin to get rid of the release agent. And again, Forge World use release agent. China Forge, yeah, I don't know. They certainly use something. I don't know how good it is for your skin. So I made sure to wash every single piece. And again, that was a whole afternoon of washing with a toothbrush, a scrubbing brush, buckets of hot water, and just fairy liquid or some sort of dish soap. So that was that. Then, so I had all the pieces, had all the scrap in a separate bag, and I laid out everything that I needed to do. The China Forge one didn't come with instructions. Luckily enough, the Warlord instructions are online. I found a copy on Reddit, but honestly, until you get to really late on, you don't really need it. It's quite obvious how the pieces fit together, and that's credit to the designers at Forge World, because it's a really well put together model, and obviously China can't take any credit for that. They just copied the idea. So now, once you've got the first two pieces ready to go, how do you stick them together? Well, super glue may work, but I'm telling you right now, the weight of this on the hips and the knees, not a chance with any kind of super glue fixed, like hold that in position, not a chance, because these are pinned and epoxy resined. So I reached out to some of the Titan building community, and thanks Moggy, and he suggested that I buy good quality resin. So this was really the second expense, if you like. Now I'll put a link, or I'll put a photograph on here, but this is Bob Smith Industries resin. This is the 5-minute quick cure stuff. People like do it by weight. I didn't do any of that. I got a flat piece of cardboard, and I put a drip on, and then I added a drip of the hardener to side by side, and if I thought I needed more, I added one more drop to each. This pack, I just bought a replacement pack, because literally this pack was enough to build that Titan to the drop. So there's zero waste at all. So if you think how much epoxy will I need, I got one packet of this. I used every single drop. In fact, the last drop was putting the jousting plates on. So that's pretty much it. Now you can start to build your Titan. So what else do you need to worry about? Well, I think you need to worry about its posing. Now I saw loads of photographs online, and a lot of them looked similar posing wise. And I went to a local model shop, and they've got a Warlord Titan that, to be honest, I think sat there for 2 years, half built. But I really liked the way it was posed. It was much more dynamic than most of the other ones. So do yourself a favour, before you do anything in the sort of torso area, get the legs all sorted out, ready to go, and then take your time posing it. Because once you commit to that and you start drilling holes and filling things with epoxy, I hope you like it, because you're stuck with it and it's not going to change any. So in this case, I sat with the kitchen table, and it's very difficult to get the posing right, because you have to hold the hip to get the right spacing. So you need two people. In fact, that's actually one of the things I should have said right at the start. If you're doing this on your own, good luck, because there's so many things that you need a third, a fourth, or even sometimes a fifth hand to hold, especially when things are curing and you're trying to take the weight so it doesn't collapse. So in this one, I wanted to make a base, and I'll show you the base. I'm not finished with the base yet, but I thought I wanted to make this video while everything was still fresh in my mind. But But basically I wanted one leg to be slightly higher. I wanted one leg to be crushing a tank, because obviously that's original. But for me, I always see Titans standing on top of like Predators or some sort of tank, and it always makes me laugh, because if this was real, if it was real, we're talking about toy soldiers, but if it was real, the weight of that would crush the tank like a pancake. So in my one, what I've done is I've got the tank, and it's like the toe has crushed right through it. So I'll show that, but basically the tank is really only there to give you the scale. I've got some infantry men as well that I'm going to put on the base, because I've got some friends who are not into Warhammer or whatever, and they don't understand the Titan. They don't understand what it is, because to them it's just. I mean, it could be it could be a Gundam, it could be a thing from Titanfall that they don't know, and why should they care? But if you had little people standing on the base, you would understand. Wow, that is a massively big, chunky robot thing. Whereas right now, I mean, that could be 6 foot, it could be 12 foot. They don't really understand the scale. So a tank was going to be important to give it a sense of scale, but it's not enough. I need to add in infantry running about the place as well. So that's what I'm going to come back to. So, as I said, I was lucky to have a friend who is a sort of builder guy who does all sorts of stuff like that, and he said, "Oh, I've got some plaster and some MDF. I wonder if you could use that for your Titan." Cheers, Si. Yeah. So I went to his house and I sort of laid it out, and I said, "This is what I'm trying to do," and then he helped me just get the wood right, and then but he didn't want anything to do with drilling holes in it. That was the thing. He said, "I'm not touching that," which I understand. Which leads me on to the next thing. So you're going to need a drill, and you're going to need sharp drill bits. So for me, because I used a 6mm brass rod, I got a 6.2mm drill bit. Why did I get a 6.2 drill bit? Well, I discovered from building models for a while that every time you want to pin something, if there's an airtight seal between the brass rods and the hole that you're trying to stick it in, if you're pushing right into that, the air compresses rather than escapes, so you can't actually get the brass rod all the way to the back of the hole that you drilled, which can throw off your measurements quite a bit. Plus I knew I was going to stick resin in that hole as well, and I didn't want it to compress and stop the brass rod going in all the way. So I got a slightly wider drill bit than the brass rod to allow air and liquid to basically come back out. So that's why I did that. The other one for the nails was just a standard, I think it's 3 mil. Yeah, 3 mil. So that's the thing. The drilling creates dust like you wouldn't believe, and I did it outside. I'm lucky enough that I live in a property that has a back garden, but even then, it looked like it had been snowing, just for the amount of dust that was flying about the place. So please be careful with that, especially if you've got kids. Just wait till they're away or whatever, and then do it, because it's not worth risking their health. We don't care. We like brushes, but your kids should definitely be protected from the dust. So that was basically, once I got the legs sorted out, and just so you know, I drilled through the bottom of this base into the soles of the feet, which anchored them on, and from that point on it was a case of just working out what the correct angles were. But if you're posing your Titan, you're going to have to work out how your legs work, and it's something you probably don't think about. I hadn't given it much thought. Well, if that foot's forward, where's that going to be to take the weight? Luckily enough, I mean, this is the only reason I'm so fat, is because I knew for years I was going to build a Titan, and I needed to practice carrying that weight with my legs so that I knew how it would work. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. The other thing is, when you are going to work out which weapon options you've got. Maybe you've got multiple options. You're going to have to work out how close those weapon options are going to get to the legs. Now that's difficult if you've not built the torso yet, but at some point you're going to have to make a decision. Well, I want that kind of space to give me space to, because this, I mean, you can move it around like it does. Well, that's the moving on that, but you can actually move the torso. So you want to make sure that your legs aren't going to get in the way. So that's really the sort of torso part. I then left that alone. I just moved it completely out of the way, and I got all the torso pieces out. I separated the arms and the carapace weapons. I just really wanted to build the box structure of the main compartment, if you like. Now, because mine was a recast or copycast, or whatever you want to call it, you know, its tolerances were way out compared to, I'm sure, what you would have got if you bought a real Forge World one. So the next piece of vital tool, if you've built any kind of resin models before, you will know what a heat gun looks like, because they are indispensable when making resin models. Some of which were like hilariously out of true, but it took some time. It took a lot of rubber bands and clamps, but I eventually got it to the point where, yeah, it was fine. I can't really complain about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I built the upper structure. I kept all the armour panels completely separate. They were actually still in the wardrobe at this point in time, because there was no point in me having them out. Built all the structure. I used Colour Forge spray primer, metallic primer, like the old lead belcher colour, and I regret that. It was such a shiny, glossy finish that when I went to put on the obligatory 2 pints of Null oil, it just beaded straight off. It ran straight off. Really frustrated with that, especially at the start when you're just psyching yourself up to do this massive painting job and you can't even get a wash on. So to combat that, I actually sprayed it with matte varnish 2 or 3 times with that as well. But I would just, you know, I thought I was being smart because I would save myself a couple of pounds buying the Colour Forge primer rather than the lead belcher, I think it's called. I would just spend the extra £2 or £3, whatever, and have a matte finish to deal with. That would have been better. In terms of the colour scheme, I didn't want to paint it this colour. I actually had an idea in my head that used colour shift paints. I believe the one I wanted was something called like Psychotic Illusion or something like that, by, it was Turbo Dork. The paint itself was great, by the way. If you ever want to paint Alpha Legion, I would definitely use that paint. It's brilliant. And this is where I have to shout out my friends, because I put on some pictures to my friends saying, "Oh, what do you think?" And to a man, or to a person anyway, they came back and they went, "Yeah, that's rubbish." So yeah, my dreams of having a sort of iridescent dragon scale-esque Warlord Titan were absolutely dashed. But thankfully I've got friends who do tell me the truth, so I was like, yeah, okay, that's really awesome. So got back to the drawing board, and a friend of mine, Chris, said, "Do you know what? Your Warlord Titan needs to be knightly. It needs to look like a medieval knight." And I was like, okay, that's good feedback, and settled on that paint scheme, and away we went. So once everything was built, the skeleton and everything was done. I might add in some pictures here. I don't have that fancy technology. Picture here. once it was built, I was really happy with it. I really loved the way it looked, and then I remembered that I had the world's supply of armour panels to paint, and yeah, it's a very long process, which brings me on to something else we should probably talk about. And again, it sounds like a humble brag because, like, oh no, it's so hard to paint a Titan, oh poor me. Titan fatigue is real. Okay, so I started this on the 13th of October 2024, and the day of recording is the 27th of February 2025. And since Christmas basically, I've been painting armour panels. That's the time. The rest of it was all assembly and building and painting the skeleton. The rest of it's all been on armour panels and details and weathering and all that kind of stuff. So it does take a long time. Now, if you're lucky enough to get a set of instructions, it would make things a lot easier. Certainly when I was putting things together, these kind of plates, one of them is upside down from what my mind was telling me it should be. So if you're doing like drip marks, be very careful, because otherwise your drip marks will be going up instead of down. But Titan fatigue is a real thing. It's kind of used up all my passion for models for the moment. I think I'm going to just give myself a little break. I might paint the figures for the base and then call it a day, but it's a long slog, and if you're unfortunate enough that you don't have a space that you can call your own for your hobby, I would really think twice before getting a Titan, because I was lucky I had these two desks here in this L shape, and I was tripping over things left, right and centre. If you're a millionaire who can buy a real Forge World Titan, and you have a wing on your mansion for all your hobby stuff, then absolutely crack on. What else can I tell you? This paint scheme used 2 full pots of Retributor Armour Gold paint. It used 2 full pots of null oil. It used a full can of that spray, that Colourforge gunmetal spray, and I bought 3 colours of blue. I know you can't see it here, but there's a bit of stuff going on there with the blue. Sort of shadows and everything are darker than the recesses and then the highlights. But I bought war paint. Army paint. Oh, good lord, I better check. I don't want to give anyone any smash about that. War paints. Fanatic. I used 3 blues from them, and I used 2 different off-whites, because I know it looks like it's white, but it's not. It's a sort of darker bone white and a slightly lighter bone white. And what I bought was a mottling mask that model aircraft builders use for that effect that they get on the fuselage, where it's all kind of different, worn in different parts and stuff. So all of the armour panels are painted with a base coat, a really dark base coat, and then the mask with the mid coat to give it that mottled effect, and then a really, really light dry brushing with the lighter coat just in the middle of the panels. So that's how I've done that. Initially, when I had my dragon scale idea, the plasma weapon was blue, because the main armour was going to be green, and then obviously I had to change it round. So the actual blue, the plasma glow that I did on the original paint job was miles better than the green that's on this, but you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. So that's it. So yeah, so two pots of gold, 2 pots of null oil, 3 colours of blue, 2 colours of white. and a bucket load of time. But the advice I would give you is standard stuff really, is, you know, measure twice, cut once. You know, if you need me to tell you that, then I don't know how you've got this far, but realistically, pose. If you've got someone who can help you hold all the bits together, I used when I was lining up the knees, because the knees were actually quite tricky. What to do is get yourself like a dry board marker, so you can like mark a line through the three bits, like so the thigh, the knee, and the shin. I only worked that out after doing the first one, so learn from my mistake there. Get a dry board marker, you know, make up some lines, so you're like, all right, okay, I need to drill there, I need to drill there, put it all together. You'll have to do it separately unless you do happen to have 4 or 5 arms, and it'll allow you to get it right. So get someone to help you hold it and mark all your joints. That's what it is. So yeah, that's it. I hope that, well, for the 4 people that have actually watched the video, hi Mum. I hope you've learned something, but the message I want to give you is this: if you have one of these things or something similar, it doesn't have to be that one, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can deal with this, I don't know I'm good enough, I might waste it, I would say to you, yes, you might make a mistake, and it's unlikely that whatever you do can't be fixed. It might not look perfect, but you know, you can always hide things with battle damage, and filler is a great tool to have in your disposal as well. So don't be afraid. Think about what you're going to do before you go rushing into it. Make sure you've got plenty of space. Make sure you've got the time to do it, because it's been a huge time investment as well. And make sure that you've got enough paint so that you don't have to go out and buy another paint halfway through, because despite what they say, the colours never really match unless you get the same batch. So, you know, I only use the blues are like half full each, probably even more than that. So you know, you should only need to buy one colour. But this, for the stuff for the trim, if you're going gold, get 2. If you're getting the spray can, I would get one that wasn't the Colour Forge one. Personally, got nothing against the company, just saying that it was incredibly glossy and it made it very difficult to wash. And have fun. You might only, well, I know I'm only going to get one chance at doing this my whole life, so you know, it's, even if you make a bad job of it, which you won't, you really won't, but even if you did, having a mediocre painted Titan is better than having a box of grey plastic or resin. And that's what I want to make sure that everyone gets out of this, right? Don't be scared. Do your best, it'll be fine. I found the Titan owners community to be very friendly. I didn't particularly advertise that it was a recast right enough. I'm not sure how they would have thought about that, but generally speaking, people are just happy that you've got a Titan and you're sharing your journey with it with everyone else. So thanks to Dave for selling me your Titan. Appreciate it. Thanks to Chris and to Moggy and to Dan and to just absolutely everybody who was a real source of encouragement. And you know, as always, Roddy, the other half of Crux, you know, every time I was like, oh man, I can't do this, they were right there just to keep me pushing along. And if you're building a Titan and you don't have anyone to give you that encouragement, drop a like on this thing and send me a comment, send me a photograph of it. I'll come back to you and I'll say, yeah, crack on, you're doing a great job. So, as I say, I'm going to do a video actually showing it and what it looks like. But anyway, for now, I hope you take the plunge, get yourself a nice kit that you've always wanted, and just go for it. Okay, well, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.